What's up, y'all? I'm Reese Mack,
And I'm Dr. JB.
and we are
Respected
Respected Equal
Equal
Perspectives.
Perspectives.
Facts.
So we just two people from Flint who have gone through some universal things and want to talk about universal things that affect us from the aspect of healing and growing. Might not be for everybody, but for whoever it's for, you gon' do your thing.
Understand this is definitely a judgment-free zone. However, what we're giving you is what we've learned through our own experiences. And hopefully what you'll take from this will help you heal in your journey as well.
Facts.
Respect.
Ow.
Yo, so Dr. JB,
Yeah.
why don't you go ahead and tell the people where that name comes from?
All right. So the name Dr. JB comes from the fact that I am working on my doctorate in business administration, and I'm halfway through with it to the point to where, I'll start working on my dissertation and lead to the point to where I defend it. So I'm claiming it now. So it's Dr. JB because I'm not gonna stop until I get it.
That's how we do.
That's what it is.
So let's give them a little bit of our history, right?
All right, let's do it.
So
You pop it off.
we have been kicking it since the fifth grade. Fifth grade, right?
So both of us hail from Flint, Michigan. Now,
Yes.
within Flint, Michigan, we're from the Beecher Community School District, aka Beecher, aka
Bucktown.
You know what it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, since fifth grade, went to elementary, middle, high school, and college.
College.
together.
Ooh.
So been rocking
Ooh.
for a long time. But after we graduated from college, it was that point in time to where we both had to grow. We had to experience whatever we needed to experience. So we didn't really reconnect until our 20-year reunion.
Yeah, we actually didn't lose touch. We just kept in contact sporadic.
Right.
And then the 20-year reunion was what started in a more consistent basis.
Facts. Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
I think that was around the time that we started to realize that we had both been on a path and we had gotten something from these experiences in the form of healing and growth, and our conversations kind of deterred, right?
So the intro to the Respected Equal Perspective is actually Reese Mack here on the vocals. So ever since fifth grade, she always been singing. So when you hear that zip down, that's been going on for a long time. No, we definitely reconnected, and I probably couldn't even say it hasn't even been like 3 days over the past year
that we haven't been speaking.
Yeah, we haven't had a conversation. But those conversations that we've been having have actually been things like dealing with us concerning our growth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like things that affected us, things that got us to this point. And through all the things that we have been through, we both recognized that it was a blessing for us to reconnect because there were so many different things that we could contribute to each other. Now, half the time, we don't agree.
No, we do not.
We don't agree. But the point of REP, or Respected Equal Perspectives, is the fact that even though we don't agree, we disagree, but we do it respectfully. And that's the thing that we're just trying to achieve, to where you can feel a way about something, or you can have a strong point of view, but if you're not able to see the other person's perspective, then it's rather pointless. So
I think that's one of the things that we have completely gotten away from universally, right?
Yeah.
We have now walked into this portion of this time frame or time era where people believe that if you don't think like they think or don't believe like they believe, that it becomes a problem.
Okay.
The whole basis of it has always been that my experience in life and your experience in life doesn't have to bring us to a point of different paths or misunderstandings, right?
Yeah.
I can understand that you have not had a path like mine, but I can respect where you're coming from without deeming it being, wrong.
No, it was just like what we talked about a couple weeks ago, to where I was saying, like, we come from the same place, right?
Facts.
But even though we come from the same place, there's still a difference in culture based off the household or the reality that came from that household.
Yes.
So that's leading us into what today's podcast episode is about. And you over here didn't put the phone on vibrate. You got
Y'all
silence
know
going
people
on in
be
the
trying to
background.
bother me. Hold on. Look, I got that. I got that. I got that.
That's some
Got
bull
that. Got that.
ruckus
Got
for
that.
dangle
Shadanga
shadanga like.
like. I'm on that bull ruckus for
Yeah,
dangle shadanga like.
yeah, facts. So, Reese Mac, kick off what today's
So
podcast episode is about.
today's topic, today's episode is actually called Generational Strongholds, part one.
Okay.
Uh, uh, Under the basis of the premises of what happens in my house stays in my house.
Ooh, what happens in this house stays in this house. So, to provide the context for this podcast episode, let's provide the people what the definition of generational strongholds is, because we always want to give the people the context so they can know what perspective we're actually coming from.
Sure. Okay. So generational strongholds or patterns enter our lives through genes and by imitating our parents. We notice these patterns as we lead respective roles of a spouse, parent, professional jobs, or church ministry. Any behavioral traits that is imitated just like a family member
Mm-hmm.
is deemed a generational stronghold.
Okay. So, so from your perspective, from the generational stronghold topic
Mm-hmm.
and the focus being whatever happens in this house stays in this house, what does that mean to you?
Ooh, that's a loaded question.
Okay.
Um, ooh, from my experience in my upbringing,
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of things. Matter of fact, I'll say it like this: from my experience and my upbringing, I led a lot of my life not telling people what was going on under the guise of what happens in my house stays in my house. Um, what I noticed though is that created a traumatizing path.
Okay.
It created a problematic path, right? It created a pattern of me keeping everything to myself. So now at 40, I'm just starting to get a hang of what it is to share what I'm feeling with other people
Okay.
because what happens in my house stays in my house kept me quiet about everything that had ever happened to me.
All right. Now that makes sense. Now, the way I look at whatever happens in this house stays in this house was like basically like the secrets. Like
Hmm.
a lot of us, especially being like 40, you being 40, me being 41, we were raised by baby boomers.
Yes, we
And
were.
what we call that is the old school way of things and the old school way of parenting. So
Indeed.
one of those generational strongholds, I'm gonna start with this
Okay.
because I have 5 children.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I got a varsity basketball squad. So the one thing that carried for me was initially when I first became a parent was the whole whooping ass concept. We were taught that
Mm.
in order to get your children in line based off how we was raised, like
Mm-hmm.
you got to whoop their ass.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to my cousin brother Salim, and he broke something down real serious. He said to me, and remember I said it to you. He said that basically the whole aspect of parents always having to whoop their kids' ass for them to have understanding
Hmm.
was their way or their insecurity or their lack of dealing with themselves.
Mm.
So I found myself
Okay.
like me having a two-parent household.
Okay.
It was old school. My mother was a homemaker. She was an
Mm-hmm.
artist. My father, he was in management for GM.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole concept was, I'm not gonna deal with this. I'm gonna wait till your daddy get home. You know what I mean? So in the
Mm.
whole waiting for your daddy to get home, whole thing, it's like you sitting there, waiting for your daddy to come home to whoop your ass,
Mm.
all based off of what your mother was saying. So when you got your ass whooped, you knew you was getting your ass whooped, but
But
but psychologically,
you
you
didn't
didn't.
know why.
No, you didn't even get the understanding of what you were doing, why it was either right or wrong.
Right.
So my oldest son, I found myself in the generational stronghold perspective, taking on my father's antics. Excuse me. Taking on my father's antics to where instead of having a conversation to understand or even break it down to him from a moral perspective, what he did was wrong. Like the
Mm-hmm.
answer for me, for everything was, all right, you know what? You messing up in school, I'm gonna whoop your ass. Why? Because the way I was raised, my father said your only job is to go to school, you know what I'm saying? And that's your job. Go to school and clean up your room and take care of the chores in the house.
Right.
But then the reality of it is my children are growing up in a totally different time
Mm-hmm.
than I grew up in.
With totally different parents than
Well,
you grew up with.
I mean, but that's why we're talking about generational strongholds.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though, well, I'm a different parent based off of who my parents are. Like, you know how I feel about my parents,
Right.
right? So I have my, I have my things to where I'm like, I wish this could have been done. I wish this could have been done. Just all those different attributes that I thought would have made me better.
Mm-hmm.
But without my parents being who they are or who they were, then I wouldn't be who I am. So in dealing with my oldest son, him being the first one, I noticed that whooping his ass is truly not the answer to everything.
It's funny you say that. I totally believe that, but I also have a level of understanding as to where that came from. Uh, Generational strongholds, right?
Right.
And if we go back, and we're not going to talk about our generation or three back from there, we can take it all the way back to slavery, right? Masters controlled their slave with physical force,
Okay.
right? And it wasn't never an explanation of what you did. It was you about to get your ass whooped.
Right.
We about to
Okay.
beat you.
Right.
Stripped down because you finna get it,
Okay.
right? And so, and they did that for everything they deemed was outside of their lines of requirement, right? So
Okay.
then you have parents, especially, it kind of ended with I'm not gonna say it kind of ended with that. I'm gonna say it slowed down after the baby boomers generation, right? Where parents understood that not all beatings is gonna change behavior.
No, no, no. I don't. I no. I don't. I don't think it changed. The landscape of parenting changed
Mm-hmm.
because with my parents, right?
Right?
With my parents, the baby boomers, it took you could take care of a family off one income because
True.
The cost of living is different.
True.
So it don't matter how much money that I make, the
Mhm.
person that I'm with, you got to bring in something too.
Facts.
Why? Because the cost of living went up.
Facts.
So what we went into, like if you look at what you would call the millennial generation, both parents are working, right?
True.
So if both parents are working, it changed the landscape not because of the generational thing. It was because of a time and change of where those parents are at. Now, let's get back to, so we talked about this whole thing of, like I spoke about, like in the aspect of me being a father,
Mhm.
of the generation stronghold of always having to whoop a kid's ass.
Mhm.
But let's get back to the real thing of it all.
Okay.
Whatever happens in this house stays in this house.
Facts.
All right. So
Okay.
to get back to that, I started off saying that whole statement created secrets, right?
Facts.
So from my family lineage, my father is the youngest of 15.
Okay.
My mother is the second oldest of 11,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there would be a family member, right, to where it was well known that this family member, whether it was an aunt, whether it was an uncle, whether it was a cousin, no matter who it was a well known fact that this individual was a molester. He was a child molester,
Mm-hmm.
right? And within that, nobody talked about it. Nobody went to the police.
No.
And they didn't go to the police because I believe within that generational stronghold because they were worried about image and perception.
I would agree with that.
All right.
I would agree with that.
So
They didn't want people to know what was happening in their home,
Right.
to their children.
But
or they want anyone to find out how they dealt with it either.
Okay. So I believe that whole statement is why from our culture, you know what I'm saying, as Black people, I think that's one of the founding principles to why therapy for Black people is not common. From that ideology of whatever happens in this house stays in this house. And I'm gonna give you an example.
Okay.
Give you an example. So you can have an aunt or uncle or cousin, right? To where they have some type of addiction.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's prescription pills, whether it's alcohol, whether it's cocaine, whether it's heroin, whatever it may be, right? So you're taught as a child, right? You're taught as a child that, all right, well, cool. That, yeah, they just been on drugs. You don't want to deal with them.
Everybody got those crazy relatives.
Yeah.
Everybody got one of these in their family. They got
Right.
a crackhead in their family. They got an alcoholic in their family.
So, but when you were a kid, you heard this perspective, but it wasn't until you got older to where you were probably, I know for me, I didn't find out why this aunt or this cousin or this uncle or this individual in the family, I didn't understand why they were like they were until I found out, oh, well, such and such
used to touch them.
Right. So I'm
Right.
I'm gonna give you this great example right here.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you this great example. I had this uncle, right? And I'm not even gonna say his name. He's not living. It's irrelevant. So we went to Detroit,
Okay.
right? Stay with this uncle, right? So it was me and I want to say, yeah, it was me and my two older brothers.
Okay.
All right. So we went to stay with him. So I want to say I'm probably like 7 years old.
Okay.
All right. So my mom and dad, they festive. Like, my uncle, he got the food. My dad is there. We're all at the table. He's
Having a good time.
Yeah, taking shots. Like, we're chilling. It is what it is. So it's late. It's time for everybody to go to bed.
Right.
So I can't sleep. But I'm in the bed with my mother and my father.
Okay.
My other brothers are sleeping somewhere else.
Okay.
But since I'm the youngest, I'm sleeping with my mother and father.
Okay.
So I can't sleep. Right? I can't sleep. So I go to the bathroom. So my uncle, you know what I'm saying? He sees that I'm up and he's like, come and get in the bed with me. Right?
Okay.
So I get in the bed with him. Mind you, I'm 7 years old. And he sleeps naked. That's how he sleeps. He sleeps naked. So my mom wakes up in a frantic. She wakes my dad up. You know what I'm saying? Where's Jock at? You know what I'm saying? Where's Jock? So she goes in my uncle's room and I'm in the bed with him and she spazzes. Like, get out the bed. So my uncle says, oh, no. He was having I remember this. He was, he had a stomach ache and, I just had him come and get in the bed with me. I want to say it was probably like maybe 3 o'clock in the morning and we got up. My mom told my dad, like, we leaving right now. Packed everybody up and we left, right? It wasn't until I was older to where my mother explained to me that my uncle was a child molester. So the question I had was, why the hell was we at his house? Or why when he come to town, you allowing him to take you out or take me out and we
why are we even hanging with him?
Why are we even dealing with this? But then the real question is, you were protective of me, but why were you so protective of me? Because who had he already did this to? And had he did that to one of the cousins, who is spazzing out right now, who is on drugs or who, you know what I mean? So you get older and then you find out, oh, they not like that because that's the direction that they wanted to go in. They like that because
it's how they've been dealing with the trauma that has happened to them.
And from the perspective of whatever happens in this house
stays in this house.
It kept it a secret.
And the thing is, I agree with that. When I'll tell you this. I don't think that is a Black community issue. No, I think that is a universal issue. I know people who we went to school with who were having those same kind of problems, might have been on drugs quite often. And you didn't find out until later that when she was 13, she was being molested or raped by her daddy, who was an alcoholic at that time. And instead of them actually seeking to get this individual healing, it went under the what happens in my house stays in my house, to the detriment of this individual's mental health. Right. So now, like you said, no one ever asked why it is they are a drug addict. No one ever asked why it is they're an alcoholic. No one ever asked why it is they spaz out or any of that.
They already know, but to actually confront it would expose the secret.
Facts. And you would have to account and atone for that once it's been revealed.
So here's another example. Like I said, I'm the youngest of three.
Right.
So my mother, like I explained to you, my mother is the second oldest of 11. So my oldest brother is roughly almost 10 years older than me. My second oldest brother, my right hand man, my best friend, he's probably roughly almost 5 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have this tremendous age gap.
Right.
So, generational stronghold.
Okay.
So, you remember when we were in Miss Harris' class and I wrote this paper because the topic of the paper in English class was the roughest time of your life, right? So
yeah, Miss Harris was known for bringing out some topics that make you write some stuff that
Shit.
make you need some counseling
Man,
afterwards.
Miss Harris, I had them topics that I had you Carl Thomas, like emotion. So
ooh, wow.
Look at me, I can't stop crying. No, real spit though, real spit. So the topic that I wrote of on the most painful time of my life it was a situation to where I thought my father just really did not love my mother. I thought my father was just out in the streets, like doing whatever he do. He got 3 kids at home. He has a wife. So in my mind, I thought that I had a perfect family. Why? Because the community that we grew up in, there wasn't a strong presence to where there was a 2-parent home.
Mm-hmm.
So I did have this sense of arrogance, like, I had a mother and a father in the house, like, we doing some things.
Because Lord knows I had a mother.
Right.
That was it.
Right.
One mother who worked at GM, long hours.
Yeah, so there was a situation that happened to where my father was supposed to be going to see his mother because my father's from Monroe, Louisiana.
Okay.
So he was supposed to be going to see his mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my mom calls down to Monroe, to check in to see if he made it. Didn't hear anything. Right?
Okay.
So she recruits my brother. There you go with that phone again.
What
man.
I just turn this thing off.
No, turn it off again.
I did.
Back to the topic.
Shoot.
So she recruits my older brother to then start looking at the phone bills. Like she went on some old CSI.
Oh, she was Inspector Gadget with it. Yeah. She was trying to get down to the bottom of it.
Criminal Minds BAU. So,
yeah.
Right. So come to find out, long story short, it was pinpointed that he was in Indiana. Right. So,
okay.
But he was in Indiana with another woman. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom is telling this story like, your dad out here, he doing X, Y, and Z. He don't care about the family, blah, blah, blah. So automatically, I'm thinking that this person who I made in my mind to be a superhero was actually out there on some bull ruckus for dangle.
Shadanga-like. Mm-hmm.
So I had developed this resentment, right?
Okay.
It wasn't until I was, I want to say I was probably about 19 years old.
Okay.
So we sophomores at Alma.
Okay.
My mom, and then at the same time, my mom is projecting out to her family members, to her siblings that, what I'm saying, Dad ain't about.
He ain't about nothing. He ain't about nothing.
He ain't about that action.
He ain't about nothing.
He the lowest of the low. So I'm probably about 19 years old. So, and I don't even think my mom was even paying attention to what she was actually saying. But she said to me, she said, when it came to you, like I didn't even want to have you. Like, I only wanted, 2 kids. Your father wanted a girl. So I got pregnant. So once I found out I was pregnant, I said, all right, well, that's on you. You wanted them, you going to raise them. Right? So she tells me that. So then in telling me that, it made me understand kind of like why she dealt with me.
The way she dealt with you.
How she dealt with me.
Okay.
But at the same time, it made me feel stupid because the exact conversation that she had with my father was after I was born, or maybe even a couple years after I was born. She said, you can do whatever you want to do in the streets. As long as you taking care of home, I'm good. Whatever you doing in the streets, don't bring it home. So I say that as to say, I was hit by that generational stronghold because I believe by nature, your mother is your first teacher.
I would agree.
Right?
I would agree with that. She is.
So
she's your first teacher, and in most instances, your first example to love, I feel.
Okay. All right. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
But it created a generational stronghold for me because that was the line to where at that point I didn't trust women.
Okay.
because I began to question if this is the stipulation that you put on my father, and then how you deal with me, this is a stipulation that you put on me from your perspective. If this is supposed to be my first teacher, if this is supposed to be the first person that I'm actually supposed to love, how in the hell can I trust a woman that I just met or somebody that I'm gonna try to get to know when I can't even trust the mother that gave birth to me?
Facts.
So that created a path of just
not trusting,
yeah,
not trusting the opposite sex,
and it created a path of karma. Now, the beautiful thing about that though, no, the beautiful thing about that though is the sister that was up under her, my aunt, like she was a strong presence, like in my life. So since my mom said, all right, well, it's on you. Talking to my dad, it's on you. He dealt with me more than she dealt with me. So I only got the example, which was a great example. I got the example of my father, but there was just certain aspects or that love from that mother that I just really didn't get.
You didn't get it.
You know what I mean? Like because
you didn't get it. Your experience was the exception. There's many exceptions, right?
Okay.
Because again, I guess I truly deep down feel that a person's first entrance and example to love is their mother. All right. And that's for most people. That's not for all. There's the exception, right? Yeah. In that case, I totally get that. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
As you realized what generational strongholds you were continuing to walk in, did you ever have the conversation with your parents about the ones you wanted to break?
Oh man, I was 25. I was 25 years old. I had just moved back to Michigan from Iowa, right? And Iowa was tough. Like I went through a lot of things emotionally, and actually being in Iowa from the karma that I had created for myself, it was like that was the stomping ground to where I had actually shed the whole concept of image and perception.
Okay.
All right.
Oh,
so
okay.
I get back home. So I go back to the home that I grew up in with my mother and my father. And my mother and father, man, they were just arguing. They were arguing. And I was so vulnerable from like all the stuff that I had went through in Iowa. Like I said to him, like, no. And I did. I got emotional. And that probably was like the last time that I had really, really, really got emotional. And I just said to him, like, yo, like, what are y'all doing? Like, y'all supposed to be the example for me of what marriage is like. You know what I mean? So when I look at our parents, people in our parents' age, it just showed for me that I didn't know what love was because it was like they just stayed together. Because in my mind, I thought, man, I wish my parents would have got divorced.
Because this ain't the business.
No, it's not the
this
business.
Ain't it.
But no, it's not the business at all. But in talking about generational strongholds, I keep saying if they weren't who they were, then I wouldn't have my hustle. You know what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't have my determination. I wouldn't have my drive because I probably was 19 years old before I realized that my father made $100,000 a year. Why? Because he raised us like we was broke. Like he was the flyest to fly. Listen, let me tell you something about my daddy. That dude was a cold piece. Like he's a cold piece. Like he would be fly to the T. His version of grocery shopping is going to Great Giant and getting like a pack of chicken, some potatoes. You know what I'm saying? And he'll make it for himself, and then whatever's left over is left over because my mom didn't cook. Like I got fed from my older brother and then my aunt and my cousin brother down the street. Or you know what I mean, or my grandmother. Like that was my outlet. That was my solace. So from a generational stronghold standpoint, like I said, like my father would have like $2,000 in his pocket, but wouldn't pay the consumer power bill for like 3 months. Wait till we get a shut off notice. It gets shut off, then he go down and pay 3, 4, 5, 6 months worth of the bill. And it's like, bro, like why wouldn't you just take care of that? But for me, I processed it differently to where that's why I'm the type of father that I am in teaching my children about money and teaching my children about like responsibility. Like
Okay.
my father was always in the street. Always in the street. Now don't get me wrong, when it came to something that I had to do, like a theater performance or like, some when I was in high school, peer education, he would always be there, but he would only be there from an image and perspective standpoint. Why? Because my freshman year, he was on the board of education. So for image and perception, you know what I'm saying? Like you got to be there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
instead of perpetuating that generational stronghold, that's why I'm at home every single day. You know what I'm saying? I'm with my kids every single day. My father wasn't a vocal person, but his father wasn't vocal for him. With him. So
Generational strongholds, right?
so with my kids, I have real conversation. And I said to my oldest son a few months ago, like, man, if your grandfather was having the type of conversations that I'm having with you, if he had that with me, man, I'd have been the coldest piece walking. You know what I mean? But I do understand that my children are in a different time. Because the things that we had to deal with, like they don't have to deal with. Why?
Fact.
Like information, right? If an atrocity happened or something tragic happened, we didn't know about it. We was outside playing basketball, we was playing football, whatever it was. Like we didn't have.
You might have caught it the next day in school when the teacher brought it up
What was it?
in the class, or you caught it on TV when you came in the house.
What was it that we had at Dolan Middle School? We had Channel One. Remember?
Channel 1, yeah.
We would find out that way. But now it's like the information is coming.
It's coming right to them,
it's coming
hands
straight to
first,
their
right?
phone.
And it's coming through many different avenues
Yeah.
in that phone to them so that they can be made aware,
Yeah,
right?
so they're exposed to so much more than we are exposed to. Now, from the upbringing, like I said, just with the relationship with my mother, it affected how I dealt with women, but it also like it affected how I dealt with people.
Okay.
Because my mother was one of those people to where, I mean, at the time, like, she was an avid smoker. So it was like, if she ran out of cigarettes and dad was at work and you said something, or even if you didn't say something, if she was in that mood, it was going to go that way and you was going to get your ass whooped. It's facts. That's just what it was. So for me, regardless of however I was trained, I'm so uncomfortable with people getting in my arm's reach. And the reason why I'm so uncomfortable with that is because I don't ever want to feel, and I couldn't do anything about it when I was a kid. But in me being a grown man or me coming up into being a young adult, I'm never going to allow nobody to make me feel like, you know what I'm saying, like the way I felt when I was a kid.
And I understand that. Mine was a little different. I definitely will say that. Let me say that. Okay, let me say this as a sideline. My mother is no longer living. Again, she was my only parent, the one that was completely responsible in raising me financially and otherwise. But there was quite a few things that I went through behind closed doors that I never shared with people. Period. Right under the guise of what happens in my house stays in my house. When I was about 28,
Okay.
I had just had a hysterectomy. And I was living here in Georgia, and my mother was in Flint. And she came down to care for me because I couldn't take care of myself for at least 3 weeks to a month. I could barely lift anything.
Hold on, let's get a pause. I got to sip on some of the devil's.
Lord, oh Jesus. But I had kept so much in, and I was trying to figure out ways to change it because I was noticing things in myself that I did not like. The problem my mother didn't understand until that point is that for me, I have always been a communicator, right? If you can make it make sense to me, if you can tell me, you know, what and why, then I can make it make sense and it will be okay for me to do so. But you have to talk to me and tell me that, right? You can't just say, this is wrong. So at 28, when she was taking care of me after that surgery, we started having conversations, right? Now, growing up, I hid my sexuality, for the better part of hmm,
Okay.
until I was 22.
And what is your sexuality?
I am a gay woman. I am a lesbian. So I hid my sexuality for a long time. And part of that was because my mother's way of dealing with the fact that I was a little bit more masculine than she wanted her daughter to be, I got beat for everything. For everything. No explanations as to what it was wrong. And they were always overkill. It took me a while to figure out she was taking out frustrations with the way I was turning out in a physical manner. So at 28, I began having the conversations. Okay, I'm 28 now. You can't beat me no more. We're going to talk about this. We're going to have this conversation for us to go on and have a mother daughter relationship as an adult. This is a conversation that needed to be had. So I had the conversation with my mother about the way I was treated and how hard she was on me. Because for the most part, I was a good kid, right? I was on an honor roll. I played sports. Yeah. You didn't hear about me getting in trouble. It just was it. That wasn't it. That wasn't it, right? I was the kid that wanted to please my mother because behind closed doors, I was getting killed for a lot.
So within that, so remember I made the statement of saying the premise of the whole you got and I'm not saying that in no way, shape, or form am I saying like okay, like a child or somebody young who's on some BS don't need their ass whooped. What I'm saying is I believe there's a time and place for everything. You know? So going back to the statement that I said of what my cousin brother Salim said, like which resonated, within me is.
And don't let me forget back, come back to that point because I wasn't finishing. Go ahead.
No, I'm not. No, I'm no. I'm,
I don't want to lose it. That's
no.
all.
This is tied into that point.
Fact.
So would you say that she was beating you to that point because she was insecure and she couldn't communicate? Like so instead of rapping with you, instead of trying to understand, she just whooping your ass because that's her level of insecurity because she doesn't know how to communicate. She doesn't want to understand off the basis of image and perception. Which ties into so you don't forget the point.
I think a little bit of that could have played a part, okay. Right? Another part that played a part was the generational stronghold that she was holding on to, right?
Which was?
Because her father, who didn't believe for years that she was his child, due to the timing, and at that point in time, my grandmother had put out my grandfather, and then all of a sudden she's pregnant, and he's thinking that she was messing around, when the entire time it was him that was doing the messing around. So when throughout her life growing up, she got harsher beatings than the rest, right? Because of what it was he thought, right? So when he couldn't deal with or he didn't seek the avenues to figure out how to come to terms with this to where it wasn't bothering and he lashed out at her, she couldn't figure out how to deal with what I was going through, right? And what it meant for her also. Not to mention, I also think there was a little bit of image and perception
Okay.
going on because my mother was a product of a uh she was a pastor's child, right? So she was a pastor's child, and then most of them entered into some form of pastoral leadership, right? Whether it be an evangelical, I got an uncle who was a pastor, you know what I'm saying? So it was a level of image and perception also, because I think, and what came clear after we had the conversation was those who are raised in the church, right?
Okay.
And that's going to lead into our part two. And I'm not going to go too deep in that.
Okay.
But those who
Okay.
are raised in the church, right? They have this image that they're supposed to, or they feel like they have this image that they're supposed to uphold. And having a gay child went against all of that, right? It went against all of that. It went against what they believe to be the Bible and what they believe to be the case, right? So the way she was dealing with me behind closed doors,
All right.
she was beating my ass.
So we don't get into part two.
Right, we're not gonna get into part
No,
two.
no.
I just wanted to give that as you
That-
know
you gave it. You
the
gave
premise, right?
No. So let's take this. Let's
okay.
take this in a different direction.
Okay, all right.
So within looking at the whole aspect of generational strongholds, the one thing that, because like I said, I had thought in my mind that my father was this one way,
Mm-hmm.
and then when I finally heard the truth,
Mhm.
not just my father or different family members, I prided myself in saying I'm gonna do everything in my ability to not be like my father. Now the interesting thing about that is that's where all the karma that I created for myself from that transition of being in going, moving to Vegas and then Iowa and then coming back to Michigan. That's where like the root of it came from. Why? Because the whole process of me saying I wasn't gonna be just like my father, how I became just like my father, just in a different context.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a heavy pill. It's a heavy pill for a man or a woman to swallow for a spouse to say, okay, we can stay married. We can stay together and you can do your thing. Long as you take care of home. I don't care what you do, long as it don't come home. So I had to look at it from the perspective as to say, man, do I have to have a greater respect for my father because he stayed in that? Or do I look at it from the perspective of, oh, man, it don't really matter because he had the best of both worlds. He could take care of this home and then he can go out there and do whatever. But the problem came from, even though my mother said that, she wasn't really conscious of what she was actually saying.
Mm-hmm.
So I was 17 years old.
Okay.
Right? So the behavior of my parents changed when Nicole came into the picture. And you know who Nicole is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm breaking up with Nicole every 3 months. I'm 17 years old. I'm breaking up. Baby, I don't want to be like my daddy. So we just need to break up. Because I need to get out here. And I just remember Donnell Jones.
Some Royal Oaks.
No. Donnell Jones. I don't know where I want to be. I don't want to be like my father was. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to break up. And I'm going to do my thing. And I'm going to get it all out of my system. I'm going to get it out of my system. And I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to come back to you.
Ready.
Man, that was
the biggest misconception.
No,
that was the biggest bunch of bull ruckus for dangle shadangalite.
Listen, and Donnell Jones ain't making no better. I just need time to see where I wanna be. No, so just real talk. Like I became exactly the things that
you were resenting.
I despised in my father because that was the focus.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that was the focus. However, there was that point in time to where, like things changed. And really, the reason why things truly, truly changed for me is because I'm not just a father of 4 sons. I also have a daughter.
Mm.
So any man, I believe, any man who has a daughter, man, it literally changes your life because you're not gonna deal. You're not gonna
You
deal with
can't
the.
deal with the daughter like you deal with your son.
No, you
You know, you
can't.
got to come with a little bit of
Yeah,
softer,
yeah,
perspective with that daughter
yeah,
than you do your son, because the son, is it.
yeah.
They teach that, hey, as a boy, you got to be tough.
No,
You
no,
got to be.
no. And that's another generational stronghold.
Oh, most definitely,
Another one,
most
like,
definitely. But it is what it's taught, right? You
yeah,
got to be a little bit harder with your boys so they can grow up to be strong men. Because if you
yeah,
treat them, a little softer, they're not
right,
going to be able to survive in this world,
right.
right?
Because
That's
yeah,
another generational stronghold.
it is
Fact. But when
because
you get a daughter who is naturally more sensitive, right? More embracing, more. She's so many different things.
I won't even say
I
she's
think for the most part, it may soften a
nah.
man to how they deal with her,
And
right?
the reason why, like the reason why is because I'm very logical,
Mm-hmm.
but having a daughter taught me what it is to be sensible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let me give this example.
And be careful, because that's gonna roll into another one of them episodes, right?
It is cool.
You borderline, and go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. So it was it was COVID's going on or whatever, right?
Mhm.
So my daughter, she's 14. She'll be 15 in April. So she had this door, like our deck. So the back door was kind of
April what?
April 24th.
Oh, she a Taurus.
Yeah.
Ooh,
She's saying-
yeah. No wonder why.
My-
No wonder why
my-
y'all are like y'all are. Y'all get along together. No wonder why y'all get along
a
like
Taurus
that.
and a Scorpio are completely opposite.
But you and I get along fine.
Yeah, but I mean that's whatever. Anywho, whatever. Anywho, yeah, all right, whatever. It ain't always been that way. Anyway,
we ain't never not got along.
No, true.
So
No.
yeah.
So the deck, like I woke up, it's probably about 9 o'clock in the morning, right?
Mhm.
So the back deck is open. The back door to the deck is open. So I'm like, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. Like I ain't went out there and smoked nothing. I didn't smoke none of my special blend. So I go to the door
Mm-hmm.
and I see my daughter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she's at one end of the deck, and it's this young man, this brother taller than me. You know what I'm saying? He's at the other end.
Okay.
Right? So I see her, and I'm like, what's going on? And she was like, oh no, like, and I walked out there, and he walked up to me, hey, Mr. Smart, how you doing? So clearly, they've had a dialogue, they've had a conversation. So I said, well, baby, you don't have to stay out here, because obviously there wasn't anything disrespectful going on.
Right.
Right? So talking about logic. So logically, if I would have wanted to pop off,
You were well within the rights.
I was well within my right.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to the whole idea and kind of switching into the whole aspect of church.
Okay.
You know what I mean? The image and perception.
Yes.
Of how someone should behave.
Yes.
So I I tell her, I said, well, do you want to come in and sit on the couch? Why? Because I'm up. I'm gonna be at the table because I'm gonna make me some breakfast. So I'm gonna see everything that's going on.
Facts.
So she was like, no, he's about to leave. So he leaves, right? So my daughter says, well, I didn't want you to, I didn't want you to feel like I was sneaking. I didn't want you to, feel like I was, doing anything out of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at her and I said, no, it's cool. I trust you. And it was from that moment to
that
where,
was you were breaking generational strongholds.
Yeah, it was
because parents didn't raise you all their lives to be
Nah.
responsible, but they never gave you a chance to be trusted.
No,
right?
but it goes back to the thing about getting your ass whooped.
Mhm.
Like I'm gonna get my ass whooped,
For everything I do.
but psychologically, I don't know why you whooping my ass.
Not at all.
I know what I did was bad off the basis of you whooping my ass, but psychologically, you're not giving me the game for me to understand
Saying why it was wrong so that
Why-
I won't do it again. Facts.
Or even if I do it again, understand that it's consequences to that. I'm not teaching in always whooping ass. you're not teaching accountability.
You're not.
You teaching fear. Why? Because if I get older and you said I couldn't do this, right?
Uh-huh.
You said I can't do this. When I get of age to where I can do it, I'm going to just do it because you said I couldn't do it. Instead of understanding, no, I'm not going to do this because, mom or dad broke this down to me for me to make the choice. And the reason why I'm saying this is because when I said that to my daughter, it changed our relationship.
Facts, but and you know what's good is, like you said, your kids have a different parents than what you had, right? I think that it's not also the fear, right? And I think this is the unknowing part that the baby boomer parents weren't looking at, was that when they did a lot of beating without explanation, it also trained this psychological restraint to things that as an adult aren't necessarily bad, right? For instance, in my household, we grew up with, because my sister had a child early on. So in my household, you know how how I was introduced to sex. If you get pregnant, you're dropping out of school to take care of this child because I ain't taking care of no more kids. That's what I got. No. The messed up part was the shit didn't apply to me. Whoa. because I was gay. And last time I had checked.
Curse words.
Last time I checked, it wasn't physically possible for me to end up pregnant or get pregnant by someone else.
I just want to put this out here. I knew Reese Mack was gay since like 5th grade.
It seems like everybody seemingly knew that, but my mom and her siblings. However, I digress. Let me finish my point before I lose it though. But it trains this psychological restraint on us, so we couldn't really figure out the rights and wrongs, the good and bads, and we definitely had a confusion in the lines of love because of the way we were being taught. Here's what I also came to understood, and I think this is where my first introduction for grace for people came. Because let me put this out there, I'm not a forgiving person naturally. It takes me a little while.
Whoa, hold on. Explain that. Not a forgiving.
Let me get back.
Okay.
Before I lose it. Okay. So naturally, I'm not. If you do me wrong, if you cross me, I'll cut you out.
Okay.
I'm not gonna hear what you got to say. I'm just going to cut you out and be done with it. I won't talk to you no more. I won't deal with you. So look, I will leave you standing there cold. I will drop you like a bad habit real quick. And it's the way I've dealt with my life of people who have wronged me, right? But it took that conversation with my mother and me talking to her about what she did, right? And how it made me feel. Because for years, I felt like my mother hated me. And it was the reason why that I was like, hell, let me get through high school. I'm going to college and I ain't never coming back. Because I felt I couldn't stand in front of the person who I loved unconditionally, feeling like they hated me, right? So once I started explaining to her what these things did to me, right? And then I put them in the context of what her father did to her, she began to understand a little bit of what she carried on from her upbringing that was detrimental and that she hated, that hurt her badly. And she began to realize how she carried it on to me, right?
That brings up another point.
Okay.
Generational strongholds. So, our parents, right? I remember with all of my siblings, right? My parents would say, okay, you ain't going to the military, you going to college. Even though they ain't go to college. Now, my father, he did. My father, through his time in evolving through GM, in order for him to move up, like he had to go like to college,
take
right?
Some courses, yeah.
Right. So my mother, she probably did like a half a stint at Mott,
Mm-hmm.
but will tell you, you going to college, you better have this certain GPA.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna help you get there. I'm
Mm-mm.
not gonna help you with your homework, but you better have this GPA.
It
And
better
if,
be good grades.
and
Now
if,
I can't give you the answer, but you better not come in here with no ease. No.
I'm not gonna give you. I'm not
Now,
gonna help you.
matter of fact,
figure it out.
I don't know how to do it.
So I'm gonna tell
You
you.
were sitting in class all day. They taught you how to do it.
Facts.
That means you weren't listening,
So,
right?
I'm gonna hit you with this ultimatum. I'm not gonna help you get there.
No.
But you better get here. So this is what it was for me and my brothers. my parents said, okay, we gonna pick where you go to school at. We gonna tell you where you gonna go to college at. We gonna pay for your first year, but you gotta pay for your remaining 3 years. So when it comes down to me, my father says, all right, you know, you got a scholarship to GMI. You going to GMI.
No, I'm not.
No, you don't even. Yeah, you know engineering for your 90,000 years at GM, but it's my life. You know what I mean? And from the ideology, from a business standpoint, you're gonna pay for the first year.
Right.
I gotta pay for the other 3, but you gonna tell me where to go? You paying a quarter, I gotta pay 75. So the interesting thing was, for example, with my oldest son, you know, the FOC got involved. We gonna hit you with this child support. So before that, before my oldest son was born, my mom was like, you need to be there. You need to sign the birth certificate so you can get your rights. So then I signed the birth certificate. Them rights. Yeah, okay, that's a whole nother different
episode.
It's a whole nother different episode. It's a whole nother episode, right? So child support paperwork come to the house. My mother is instructing me on how to deal with child support. At this point, you've been married for 40-something odd years.
You ain't got no outside kids.
What you gonna tell me about
child support?
So I digress. Let's get back to the point. So what I told my kids was, I want you to do what makes sense for you. My path is my path, right? I don't care about the image and perception. I did what I had to do. The reason why I wanted to go to college, because I wanted to get the hell about the house. And I ain't want to do nothing that would make me come back here. Whereas your life is not like that. I want you to be here, whether you want to go to school, go to skills trades, want to start a business, whatever it is that you want to do, I'm going to help you do that. But you just got to make it make sense, right?
Fact.
So I believe in my heart of hearts that our parents wanted the best for us. They wanted to make a better version of themselves.
Facts.
But based off what they had, they did the best that they could.
And that's where I was leading at. That's what gave me that level of grace, right? Because you told me, and it keeps sticking. I keep hearing it.
What?
You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't, right? And I understood also that there was a lack of communication with the parents of the baby boomers, right? And until became a lack of communication.
Well, hold on, I gotta get this out. You had me coughing. Or it was a situation was you had the grandmother who did the son and the daughter in. And then when they have kids, they knew that they created a monster. And they knew that monster was deriving from them. So then they step in
to save the child, like redoing their experience.
So is it guilt or is it a righteous path?
I think that guilt can bring you to a righteous path.
No, that's an oxymoron.
No, I don't think so. Let's talk about that.
Right, no. So if guilt can bring you to a righteous path, if the foundation of it if the foundation of it is some BS, that means it's not true in nature. So we talk about, all right, intentions and action.
Okay.
I don't give a damn about what your
Intentions are.
I only care about how it play out.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
How it play out. All right?
Okay.
Now, what we need to do at this point right now, what we need to do is we need to go ahead and wrap this up.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. We gonna roll right into the next episode.
But before we go, the one thing that we have to do is we got to send a shout out to our producer, Boney Mac, the one on the 1s and 2s and the 8s. So shout out to you, brother man.
BBEMG. Yes.
Got to do that. So we talked about a lot of things in this episode right here. It was the first one. You know, there's things that we got to work out. There's things that we got to rap about.
Please bear with us. We got this.
I'm not gonna say bear with us. I'm gonna say I know I got something from this, and at the same time,
we hope y'all did too.
That's it. All
hey,
right?
So we're gonna wrap this up, and we'll pick up part 2 next time.
What's your name?
However,
what's your name?
Reese Mack. But before we go ahead and do that,
okay.
Just putting out there, if you guys would like to send us in some questions, comments, inquiries, or even give us a different perspective, because we're open for that,
okay,
please reach out to us and email us at respectedequalperspectives@gmail.com. Or you can follow us on Facebook at Respected Equal Perspectives, as well as on Instagram at REP Podcast. Please also check us out on YouTube at Respective Equal Perspectives. Let us know what y'all thinking. We want to hear from you. So again, my name is Reese Mack. This is
Dr. JB.
And we are Respected Equal Perspectives. Until the next time, peace.
Doing your thing.